It's time to meet Monique. There's no one quite like she. All ghost hunting, drag queen. She'll tell you all you need. Cause strikes the highest form of energy there is. So come on, boys and girls, join our paranormal world. Ghosts and glitter. Join the ghostess with the mostest. Ghosts and glitter. Monique too soon, hope you don't scare too soon. Ghosts and glitter. Ghosts and glitter. Join the ghostess with the mostest. Ghosts and glitter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monique Too Soon, and you're listening to Ghosts and Glitter, a paranormal podcast with a little bit of drag and a lot of pop culture. And tonight we are joined by one of the coolest guests we have had on the show yet, Beckie and Galentine. She is incredible, and I can't wait to start interviewing her now. So let's bring her right on. Beckie Ann Galentine was raised in Starford, Pennsylvania, a rural coal mining town haunted by mine disasters and emptiness following an exhaustion of resources. She is a paranormal investigator who has worked as a licensed embalmer in the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Her interest in history was fostered by a childhood spent poring over households of the recently deceased, alongside her parents with whom she lived with in an antique shop. This exposure to objects created an interest in the link between the present and history. It was while pursuing a degree in science and engaging in laboratory research that she found her first encounter with something unexplained. Beckie relocated to Connecticut after earning a degree in mortuary science and worked as a mortician during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. In this time, she began exploring the region's haunted history and presenting it to new audience in a short format video on social media. With this platform, she aimed to bring forward the discussion of complicated grief patterns and the negative impact of the dismissal of paranormal experiences may have on the bereaved. This understanding of physical death and the afterlife gave her a unique approach to paranormal investigations and a strong compass for ethics. Her social media presence has brought her paranormal research to light via various live interviews, newsprint features, and multiple podcasts. She recently starred in the featured documentary America's Most Haunted and Famously Haunted Amityville as a researcher and in the Hysterically Haunted series as an investigator. She has been featured in BuzzFeed, Daily Mail, Vice, and many other large news publications.
Hi.
Hello, Beckie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So you started doing events with Strange Escapes. That is kind of like one of those bucket list things that I've always wanted to be a guest at. Like I love Amy and I love Adam and I love oh my God, Sagers. Aaron. I always forget the first name. But I got to meet him at WarrenCon and I kind of talked to him about Strange Escapes and all of that cool stuff. But you get to do like the Mount Washington Hotel, which is actually like an hour north of where I live.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite locations. And I started going to those events as like just a regular attendee first. And I remember the first time I went and I was like, this is like magic. Like, why aren't people talking about these events more? Because they really are like really well curated, really intelligent. And the Omni was just like the perfect setting. And so the next year I come back as a speaker and everyone's like, I remember you from the other side. You're one of us. Like, and now you're over there. So then I did Gettysburg and then I have the cruise coming up this year. So the Omni, I believe, is on a hiatus till next year or whenever she starts that back up. So, but it truly is like, I couldn't recommend the events higher. And there's not a single person that gets put on these events that I have any qualms with them. Like they're the best people.
Yeah, there are so many cool people, and a lot of them I actually do know and have met. Richard Estep, he's kind of someone that's newer to the events. He started last year, I believe. All really, really amazing people in this field. Adam Berry, I recently chatted with. We were talking about possibly doing an event together in P-Town this summer. And I'm like, there's haunted places in P-Town. Like, I'm so out of New England hauntings because I've gone to the same like 5 locations so many times that I haven't really ventured that far out of, the ones I've been in. Have you done any of the other locations like Waverly with them?
I didn't do Waverly or any of the other ones. I did because I was mostly in New England. I was living in West Hartford. I moved there and then I started like getting to know New England hauntings. And I went to the Mount Washington as, like I said, as an attendee. And then I did the Mount Washington, I did Gettysburg, and now I'm on the cruise, which is really exciting. So I haven't ventured any further out there. Like I've been to Waverly on my own, but not with the Strange Escapes crew.
Okay. How's the cruise operating? Like, where is that going? I don't know about the cruise yet.
So this is really fun, but it's starting in New York, and there's a stop in Newport, and you're gonna see Belcourt Castle. They're doing a tour there, and then there's a haunted pub in Maine. I think Adam's in charge of that, and then it's going all the way up to Canada to the cemetery where all of the Titanic victims are, and John L. Tenney's gonna be there. So it's Steve, Adam, Amy, and John L. Tenney and me on on a cruise for a week, and then hitting all these like haunted spots.
I love that. That is super cool. I have never actually investigated on a cruise ship, or actually I did on the Queen Mary, but it's not really a cruise ship.
Yeah.
Kind of like
In
an
the
old war.
middle of the ocean.
Yeah, no. Have you ever done that in the middle of the ocean?
Mm-mm. I think the cruise is more like relaxing, but I was like, how close are we getting to the wreck site? Because maybe we could like investigate while we're like passing through, you know?
That would be really cool, actually. I know it's not that far off the beaches from here, like off the ocean. I thought it was so much further away. And then last year when all that stuff went down with the submersible and they kind of showed it on a map, and I'm like, I can't believe the Titanic was so close to the New England oceans.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't even realize how much it was connected. There are cemeteries in Vermont where there was a cenotaph up for someone, and I was like, "Oh, this is someone who died in the Titanic." I knew from the date, and it said "lost at sea," and I didn't know it was all so close to us. I had always assumed it was further out. Like it's still pretty far. Like we're not going to get anywhere near there, I'm sure, but still, it's just the energy along the shore and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be so cool. One really cool thing about you that I love and I can't wait to ask you about is your curated boxes. And I know that you kind of are a collector of many, many different things. I saw the coffin you recently acquired that happened to have some teeth in it. So tell me about these objects. Do you believe in haunted objects, first off?
So I was skeptical of haunted objects until I had an experience with an object like maybe a decade ago, and I was like, "Oh, there is that one object that I had," but I wasn't into the whole like haunted object realm, and now I'm more so like open to the idea when it's explained to me differently. So when it at first I was like, there's no way there's a ghost trapped in there just trying to like talk to people. And then I realized, oh, when it's authentic, there are these stories that are just so specific that nobody could have invented them. I think it's a predatory area of the field because people have whole haunted object businesses. And that's where the misleading goes because there's people who buy things at the thrift store and resell them for $100 and say they're haunted versus someone who comes to me and says, you know, I've been taking care of my husband. He has cancer. I really need to get rid of this doll. I will not make you pay for anything. You don't have to post about it. I just need you to take this. And so it's like this ease of mind that I give people. And whether or not that manifests into activity, I believe that their reality and perception of the object is authentic. So that's kind of my history with that. But a majority of things like the coffin, I don't believe those are haunted objects.
No. Do you feel that the spirits kind of attach to the objects more than are trapped in them too? I feel like sometimes like we get something and it comes with a story. Like this object was Annabelle's favorite, box or something, and maybe Annabelle comes through and you're with that box.
Yeah, so that's what I think is like access to the individual or entity rather than thinking of it as a ball and chain. Think of it as I'm able if I call upon this. So that's how I think people are able to communicate with the haunted objects a lot of times. It's like, hey, I know this is really important to you. I'm right here and I feel like this is going on. And what really opened my eyes with the haunted dolls was that not thinking about the entities actually being in them like a costume, but the entity being on the outside and moving the object. Like, I like this thing. And then I was like, okay, this is making a little bit more sense for me than the idea of like, I'm trapped and I'm, tortured and all of these things because, it's a material good. And I do believe when we pass, we transcend human emotions for the most part. And we're not going to think of it like, I really want my stuff, but there are certain things that are strong emotional ties the same way the locations are.
Do you have a place you store everything so that it doesn't bother you in your home now?
Yeah, so I'm actually in that room. I set it up like a Victorian parlor, basically, so that if these spirits are here, that like, hey, you have this room and space, like do whatever you need to do in here, whatever that looks like to you. But I do shut the door. I have protections on the wall. I have the ring that I just got that was sent to me from Canada, where the lady felt that she got this really rare form of cancer. As soon as I opened it, I was like, I put it in a selenite dish. It's in here. And the only objects that are not in here are the two haunted ventriloquist dummies. And the reason is because the person they came from was a collector. And I feel like the reason he had the experiences he did is because whatever antiques or objects in his collection did not like them. And I felt like it kind of played on the energy because this is someone who collects mummies and human remains. And it's just, he's a curator as well as a steward for these objects. And I felt like whatever was in these 1940s composition ventriloquist dummies just did not mesh. So I think giving them an isolated environment is the best option.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I believe keeping them kind of protected is probably for the better, especially if they've mixed badly with other energy in the past. You don't want to cause
I'm
any.
not testing it. Yeah.
No, yeah, no need to test it. It came with a story. That story's great.
Yeah.
So the photos on the wall. So I believe to the left of where you're sitting is where that coffin is, correct?
So I actually moved the coffin into another room now.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, behind me is just kind of like this little corner. There's a memorial for a little girl that when I went to pick it up, I wasn't even trying to pick up anything haunted. I cannot escape this stuff. I go to this lady's house in Connecticut. I'm here to buy like a reproduction Victorian dress for photos. And I look on the wall and I was like, is that a mourning piece? I collect those. And she's like, yeah, but it's haunted. I've had it for 25 years and the kids don't want it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And I was like, I'll buy it off your wall. She's like, well, you need to know what happened. And she said that when she brought it home, the wind chimes picked up in one direction all the way through the house. You just felt like this energy and they just accepted, okay, there's a kind ghost attached to this memorial for this spirit. So I don't inherently think mourning objects are haunted, but that one did come with a story.
So the pictures, you posted a photo of the coffin with a couple of candelabras and like a photo, some
Yeah.
paintings in the background. So are those paintings related to you in any way, shape, or form, or are they just things you've collected?
No, so what people don't realize, and I get a ton of hate for this, it is wild. You will not be able to imagine what people say to me online. And they're like, that's disrespectful. That's someone's ancestor. Let them rest. They're not decor. And I'm like, this is a 140-year-old photograph of someone, and it's going to be trashed otherwise. Why would I not buy it? So the photos are not familial. Unfortunately, I don't have any family photos from that era. There's one out there of my great 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 grandmother, and the someone else has it and they won't release it to me, but I saw it on Ancestry. So, and we look just alike. It's wild. So I guess I'm just like a steward, a custodian of other people's memories. These people don't have names. I can't upload them. There's no way to find who they are.
Yeah. And it's true because prior to internet, a lot of things weren't really being, documented in the way that we can research them now, unless somebody has uploaded them on the internet either.
Yep.
I find that so hard when you do go into like a haunted place and you do get some names and stuff and you start searching and nothing goes beyond 1980 or something. It's so hard to find evidence now. But I find it so fascinating that you collect like lockets of hair. I've seen photos that you post, and eventually you get kind of too full and you start making curated boxes. Am I correct?
So the idea from the boxes was not a profitable venture. I did not think it would be anything. I don't even know how it came to be. I was just like, wouldn't it be cool if you got a box that felt like you opened a drawer in a haunted house?
Yeah.
And that's where it came from. And I didn't even really know where I was going from when I made the first couple. I posted 7, they sold out in an hour. And then I did 40 and they sold out in a day. And now I haven't done them in a few months and I still get messages asking for me to do them. The problem is I like I have to search to find the things affordably enough. So a lot of people can't travel. And that's what I think most of us don't realize when we're posting content from these locations. There's people who want a piece of that. And I felt like it would connect them with that. And some of the pieces came from places I was independently researching. So not just, famous locations, like, wallpaper, things that were being discarded or whatever. And then in addition to that, hair, usually identified hair. And the first boxes I did, I actually talked to the next of kin. I said, does anyone have like a spot for this hair? And she said, no, there's nowhere for it to go. Everyone in the family lineage is gone. So I was like, well, we all can remember her a little bit. And I made little bows and I put the information, the obituary information. I said, if you could try and track down her grave, do something that makes sense for you. And then I would put in a couple cabinet cards. Same thing, like these cabinet cards, they're beautiful, but people don't want to go through and choose their own. But if they're given two that were chosen for them, they're a little bit more drawn. And then a little bit of a curio, just kind of like a miniature version of the way that my house looks. And my house being a thing that people like the style of is like a whole new thing that I'm getting used to. But it's always things that I would want myself, like a small doll or ephemera from haunted locations. That's the coolest thing, is like in like the 1800s and 1940s, we have these postcards, we have these pamphlets before the places were advertised as haunted. And one of the first ones I found was this brochure from Savannah that actually went to Amy. Amy bought a couple of the boxes, and so did Adam. They really took off. It was like seeing these people from all over supporting it, and names I never thought it. I was like, whoa, like they are on the Morbid podcast. And so that really was humbling.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I actually wanted to get one the last time you sold them, and I was like a day too late for them. So I'm gonna keep watching because I want to get one at some point. I personally do take things from locations, like when they let me. Like I have water from the well at the Conjuring House, water from the Hinsdale Pond, pieces of Wilson Castle. Like I just think it's so cool to have a piece of that history. And I am one of those people that loves, having a piece of a location. And I love the people that like Jeff Fent who make boxes out of the locations, like spirit
Yeah.
boxes. Like to me, that has got to be the most incredible energy. And I plan on Wilson Castle is one of the places that I am so endeared and fell in love with, and the owners I love. So I'm trying to get wood from the floors that they ripped out, so I can have a Wilson Castle, Fent box made for me.
That would be awesome. Yeah, that's a really good idea. And Wilson is beautiful.
Have you been there?
Yeah, I was there maybe 3 years ago was the last time I went. It was like kind of that weird time in between like COVID and like COVID was happening, but it was like things had just started to open up. So it was a quiet night with some friends. And then I really started seeing people go there a lot more. And I haven't been back to the events.
Do you host any events on your own or just with Strange Escapes?
I've hosted a few. I still consider myself like on my journey, and I feel like I haven't had my big thing happen yet where it makes sense for me to be leading people. I'm still having my like legacy investigations where I'm like, I'm the first investigator to ever do this place, and I want to make sure this history is done, and it's really time consuming. So I'm not really, I've done a few events as a guest and led investigations, but it's just a realm that I don't think I'm like ready for. So I take them when people ask, like Seaside Shadows in Connecticut I've worked with, but I don't really host my own. And I definitely don't see myself ever like hosting events full time.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I do a lot of events. And I think like the reason I started doing events, because I started doing drag and ghost hunting during COVID. And that's when I was bored. I lost my bars. And I was like, you know what? I've been ghost hunting for so long. Why don't I try doing it in drag? And the results were just so crazy. And then I started getting attention for it. And of course, that turned into events. And now, I can't stop doing the events. I have so much fun doing them. But I bring a little bit more entertainment to a ghost hunting event than, the typical investigator out there. Do you consider Oh, go ahead,
I was
sorry.
gonna say that actually, makes a little bit more sense for me. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do. That's the other thing is the way I investigate. I really like to be in a place for a week, and so like an hour, I feel like I'm not giving people what they like to see from me, because people see a certain side of me. With you, it's like they do get a bit of a show as well as the investigation and your expertise. So it makes sense for you to do that. That's a cool thing to provide for people.
Yeah, and I've had some weird stories come out of it. Like I had a client of mine who brings her 17-year-old son, and I'm like, it's so weird that you're bringing this like 17-year-old, heterosexual male to my events, and he's into ghost hunting with a drag queen, and I come from an age where being gay or different was not really acceptable. So to have people that age accepting of me is such a new thing, and it's so amazing to see this younger generation that actually does have a lot of open-mindedness and a lot of love in them. And he got kind of ripped apart at school for, talking about going ghost hunting with a drag queen. And when his friends were like, why would you do that? He was like, because anytime I get scared, she says something so stupid and I just start laughing and that fear washes away. And I'm like, that's the best review I could ever get from anybody. Because
Yeah.
you want to go to be scared, but you also want to have a good time and have it be a memorable experience.
Yeah, and the kids are changing. I know when I was in 8th grade, I didn't even know what I was doing. Like, I didn't think of myself as like different than the other kids, but I was in 8th grade and we were supposed to give a presentation to the class that was opinionated. And so my research paper, it was so humble. It was like, homophobia is wrong. And that was the level we were at when I was in school, because this is like 17 years ago now. And so actually I was even younger than that. It was probably 20 years ago. And it was in an era where the only gay couple in our class, they were told they couldn't go to prom. And they said,
Mhm.
absolutely not. This is a liability. And now you could never do that. And the other incident that happened while I was in high school that I remember is there was a teacher. I should just say her name, but I won't. She was a keyboarding teacher, and Brokeback Mountain had just been released.
Oh,
And she said, I wanted to watch that until I found out the Cowboys were gay. And I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how I was raised this way, but I looked at her. I was never one for rules. And I said, you in a position of power, an authority, are now expressing this opinion. And what if I was gay? Or Lucy, who's sitting next to me, is gay? How would that make us feel? And she apologized, but that didn't change her opinion. She still felt a certain way about it. And I was bullied relentlessly, not for being gay, but because I was an ally in high school. And now seeing kids that are like, they more so reverse bully anyone who has those kind of antiquated beliefs. But when I think back what I went through and my experience as someone who at the time just said I was heterosexual, knowing that that was my experience, I can't imagine what it would be like to go through that and then seeing the change with the kids. It is good to have like representation in every field. So bringing it into the paranormal, I'm sure you've heard people say, "Oh, why is that important in the paranormal?" It's representation needs to happen in every corner in order to see true representation.
yes. And there are so many gay people in the paranormal world, but I will say like 80% of them are closeted and well, I wouldn't say closeted, but they're not really using that to their advantage either. They're kind of hiding it or keeping it low, maybe because they're afraid they'll lose viewers or whatever. But to me, that's just bananas because me doing ghost hunting and drag is what makes me special, and I'm never going to be quiet about it. Like I'm going to force myself into this world, whether they want me or not. And I think that is really important. Like you said, it's important to have that representation. Why do I ghost hunt and drag? It's not, because it changes a lot of the investigation. It changes the words we get through our spirit boxes a little bit. We get wig, we get eyelashes, we get funnier things because I'm in drag, but all it really does is amp up the energy and change the way we're doing it, you
Yeah.
know? And why do we have to do things the way we did them 20 years ago? Why can't we do them a little differently now? And
Well, and I think this field has this way of imposing what they believe looks like the right way on other people. So they think that, you know, p- girls shouldn't be investigating in makeup, and guys shouldn't be investigating in makeup for that. It should be humble. It should be this and that. It should have an appearance. It should be, sweatpants, black shirt, black beanie, and it should all look one way. And we see this not only with, people who are gay in the field, but we also see this with sex workers, because people impose and they say, oh, they're in the field for the wrong reasons if it doesn't look the way we want it to look. And it's like, no, you are just still a little bit homophobic. You're still just a little bit anti-sex work. And you need to, you know, tear that down and look at why that bothers you.
Seriously, because at the end of the day, if like when people are really bothered by me, I've had like celebrities laugh in my face and walk away from me from the paranormal world. And like to me, I'm just like, you know what? It is what it is. Not everyone's going to like this. Not everyone's going to go for it, but it's not going to drag me down at all. I'm going to keep going and I'm just going to remember, the people that aren't on my team now because when they want me to be on their team in a couple of years when things have, really picked up for me, then I'm not going to be there for them unfortunately. And I'm sure you feel the same way. There are people out there that are just so rotted inside and just evil. And I don't know why just because someone's different, they have to bring them down. And I don't agree with that. So
You don't even have to be different. They just look for something. Like you'll meet people that are just like, I swear, and am exposed to it so much on social media. I know people look at my post and they just think, what can I figure out to say that is wrong with this? What can I figure out to say that I don't like about it? And it'll be some non-issue. Today, I had someone say when I posted that coffin set up in the corner, I was like, this is coming together nicely. And someone said, it's kind of mid, if I have to say so myself. I'm not going to lie. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I will curate my house a little bit more to your taste next time.
people have so many opinions about
Yeah.
nothing at all that affects them. That's the thing. I'm
Mhm.
like, just scroll by. That we have the internet, but I feel like we just need to turn off the comment section on everything because that is where all the negativity comes. Like I'll put ads on events that I'm doing. And the comments are just like so stupid, like calling me a stripper, calling me a hooker. I'm like, that is not doing anything to help my event, but it's not doing anything to hurt it either. You're just literally wasting your time.
And the other thing that we get is people saying, well, that's what you signed up for, being in the public. I did not sign up for abuse. I did not sign up for watching some of the things. And I have received, last year, I received an email that was transphobic, homophobic, and racist all in one for no reason. And it was just like this hate email. And I'm like, I can't even screenshot this and post this. So when people see me posting the hate that I get, it's not because it truly hurt my heart. I know that it has nothing to do with me. The reason I'm sharing that is because I want people to understand what it's like when people see us in enviable positions when we're in the public eye.
Yeah. And I had just really started doing paracons and stuff because I was kind of afraid to go out in drag in these events, not really knowing how these people were going to treat me and whatnot. And mostly everyone's really cool with me, but I have definitely come across a few people. Like I watched on Facebook, of course, in the comment section, a pretty well-known investigator bashing someone for being non-binary and refusing to call them they, them, and all these things and just referring to them by their their dead gender that they've gotten rid of. And it's just remarkable to me that nobody came to this person's defense from the paranormal world. Nobody, not a single person came to this poor little investigator except for me. Of course I did, but like people were just kind of dodging that comment or ignoring it. I'm not going to walk by and ignore that. That's not cool.
So I've seen that, specifically that, so I'm probably thinking of the same person and situation. And what bothered me and what always bothers me is not using someone's pronouns because you are angry at them, or misgendering someone because you are angry at them is not, that's still an act of violence. You are still accountable. And what happens to people who are allies or politically correct or following the right things or are good people? The second they're angry at someone, all of a sudden they're willing to just bring it down to the level of, removing the basic humanity and respect for these people. And that is the one thing that always kills me. And this came up this week where my friend was misgendered, and they're like, oh, well, I was mad at you. So I'm misgendering you because I'm mad at you. And that situation was that I'm mad at this person, so I'm going to misgender them.
That is so ridiculous to me. I grew up with my best friend was trans, and she came out in like senior year of high school and showed up in her full blown, herself as a senior, and she survived high school as a transsexual woman. And after high school, this friend of mine, we were just so close. We hung out for so long, and she ended up taking her life because of this kind of bullshit. Like people don't realize how little words, you may not think they're serious to you, but they hurt so deep sometimes that you can cause someone to actually take their own life, or, do something crazy like that. And it's just so sad that people would use that while they're angry.
Yes,
Call me
exactly.
a bitch. Call me something else. Like, you're not going to offend me with any word you call me, but please don't, use my sexuality or my gender or any of the other things to bring me down, because those are the things that, I've already had issues with in the past,
Right.
or, those are issues that actually hurt, you know, but people just don't get it. People probably never will get it, unfortunately, not in our lifetime at least. And
No, I'm shocked when I see it. I'm like, because I live in such a bubble with like, I don't let people in my space that behave that way. And I'm very vocal about it. And it's won me some enemies, but I'm like, if you can't. And, I just had a comment today and they said, I bought that little plant stand and they basically implied that I would use the plant stand to stand on so that I can kick it out from under me when I unalive myself. And I said, the only thing I responded, I said, rot. Like, that's all I have to say to you. And everyone was like, wow, he cooked, he got you. I'm like, implying, like, encouraging someone to harm themselves on social media. And the thing is, like you said, when you go back to disrespecting someone's identity, it not only disrespects the person you're angry at, but any friends in their circle are going to go, oh, so you think this of me too, but you're not saying it because you're not mad at me.
yeah, it's so much. And right now, like, I'm kind of glad that there's a lot of paranormal drama, because it's taking out a lot of the trash. But,
Yes.
I'm kind of sitting back and just watching it and eating popcorn. I'm not getting involved. Everyone that I know that is on a bad side, I've gotten rid of from my life. I just drop people so quickly. I'm all about me and doing fun things and fun experiences, and, having fun with the people that want me around in this field. And I am not going to waste a single piece of my time on anybody that does not want me here. And I know you're dealing with the paranormal drama too. We're all the same friend circle, obviously, but it is ripe right now. There is so much drama out there, and it's so hard to
The
just
drama,
ignore.
I don't really even see because I'm more like in the TikTok sphere and the
Mm.
Instagram sphere. So I know the paranormal people I do, and they never have drama because they don't do it's the people on Facebook that I'm like, whoa, it is the Wild West out here. And people will say anything, nothing is on the table. And I'm not super involved in it. I'm responsible for calling some people out, and I don't even know if that's the best avenue to deal with some of these issues that we have. But when I had someone come to me and they were like, "Oh, this person said all this stuff about you." I'm like, "I've never even interacted with this person,"
Yeah,
and the words that they were calling me were so harsh, and I, confronted them and they kind of like talked to me privately and they came up with a reason, like I deserved it in some way. And I said, if you felt that I had wronged you in some way, please talk to me privately. That's all I ask. Like turning it into justification to harm me and go to other people and call me things that are just downright dirty. And like I said, you know, with TikTok, we also get called out for not doing it for the right reasons. And then when people met me, they'll meet me and say, "Oh, you're actually really intelligent and know what you're talking about." And it's like, but what even if I hadn't been, I'm still entitled to be here.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And people just need to get over themselves and move on. And once people start really like just loving people and working with people and getting to know people, then I think that changes a lot of opinions too. Like,
Mhm.
work with me once and you'll know that I'm not this scary drag queen. I'm a normal everyday person that just has a lot of makeup on and some bright hair and some really crazy clothes. That's it. That's all I am at the end of the day. It's not any scary character. That's, I'm not out there faking shit either. I'm doing everything professionally. Like, I really want a good name in this field. I don't want to get caught faking anything, because a lot of people have had that
I
happening lately too.
I do love a scary drag queen though. But there are space for them.
I do scary stuff. So I actually, at this next show I'm doing on 420, I don't do shows ever anymore. I quit doing shows to focus on paranormal. But I'm creating this whole Casey Becker from Scream mix, and I'm actually going to do like the opening scene from Scream with the phone, and do that whole Drew Barrymore character, because I do love a little horror number, but I don't typically do that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Like for this aspect, it's supposed to be fun, but I
Yeah.
do love when people do some of that. And I don't mean like spooky Halloween, like, like the really scary drag ones.
Like Boulet Brothers, Dragula, where they have like it's like a horror show.
Yeah.
Just featuring
Yeah.
drag. You know,
I'm like, I appreciate that. That's
yeah.
unsettling. Thank you.
So I want to leave the paradrama for a minute because I had a couple of other questions I really wanted to
Sure.
ask you. Are you sensitive in any way, shape, or form? I don't think I've ever heard you talk about that.
Everyone tells me that I am, and I'm like, no, I'm not. And then, it started when I was young. So, like, also eighth grade. I said to a friend, we were sitting playing chess at the table, and I said, you know, my brother's going to get into a car accident tonight. I don't know why I said that. Why would I even say that? And he did at 3 o'clock in the morning that night. And it changed it altered the course of my family's history for a decade. And that was the first time that something strange had happened. And I know that my grandmother actually said something the day that my uncle, who I never met, he passed away when he was young. When he died, she had a bad dream. And my mom received a dream when her father passed away where someone came and said, go visit your dad. And then he passed away. So it runs in the family, whatever it is. And as I've moved into the paranormal field, I'll meet people and they're like, are you sensitive? That's one of the questions they'll ask. And I say, no, not really. And they're like, yeah, you are. I'm like, and at first I'm like, are you being sexist because I'm a woman and women are always labeled mediums and sensitive? But there's just been times that I know things like there's like the second voice that's just like, don't trust that person, don't do, and there's nothing else going on. So I think that it's there. It's not something that I've developed, but it's something that I've learned to listen to and give credence to rather than dismiss.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the same boat as you. Up until COVID, I was ghost hunting, but I wasn't really paying attention to the whole third eye aspect of it or the psychic part of it. And then people started saying, "You have the glow. Your eyes wide open. Why aren't you, talking about the things you're experiencing?" And I guess I just didn't really know for a couple of years how to piece together some of those pieces. It's a big open minded thing, and everyone senses things differently, everyone gets it differently, so it's not like there's a standard guidebook to go by. It's all about learning you and how you connect to
Yeah.
spirit. And I think that's a really hard thing to do, especially when you deny that. Like I'm the same as you. I'm like, I'm not really that sensitive, but then I'll go somewhere blindfolded and I'll start telling stories about the location and they'll be like, I don't know how I did that.
Yep,
It's just,
exactly.
I feel like the more we go hunt too, and the more we do investigations too, we start to learn how to pick up on that energy too. Like I can almost always tell when we're dealing with a child spirit versus an adult spirit. And that's something I can't really explain how I know. I just happen to, it's a feeling. It's something that you feel.
Yeah, and you learn to identify that too. So you might have felt that feeling before, but not known what it meant, or saw those images before, but didn't know how to discern them and translate them into a message that you're meant to receive. And I feel like experience is how we do that. But when you start saying you're sensitive, when you start saying you have these things, then it changes the trajectory of what you are. So I've adamantly just been like, I'm an investigator. I don't want to adapt to anything else.
I always say that when you tell someone you're sensitive, it's an immediate like, oh, is my uncle here? And I'm like, that's not how my sensitivity works. So I try to not tell people it because I don't communicate with their past loved ones. That's not how it works. I get little things here and there. It's not a whole story. I wish I heard them. I wish I could, set people at ease by talking to their relatives, but it just doesn't work that way for me. Not yet, at least.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. It just opens a whole can of worms. It changes the way people think. And there are people on investigations that are sensitive, and then what happens is it becomes all about what they're seeing. And for me, there needs to be a blend of validation with the equipment or what we have going on, or something visceral in addition to that. And then when those two things blend together, the intuitive nature and the other side. But when you let an intuitive run the show, they will just, gobble up the whole investigation.
I absolutely feel the exact same way. And I was a tech nerd before I was, at all sensitive. So I love equipment. What's your favorite piece of equipment?
I think I like the digital recorder the most. That feels like the most, like less fancy evidence. When you get an EVP, it's like, I don't even know how to explain that, especially when you have a camera rolling and you get an EVP and it's not on the camera, and it's like, where did this come from? You know, a lot of the other equipment to me is exciting, it's fun, it's cute, but it can sometimes feel like the same thing repackaged over and over. And you know, Kalani and I just investigated out in Iowa, and we realized, hey, there is a concurrent EMF radiation going all the way around this house in a circle, and it's going to trigger your devices at random if you don't measure for that and account for that. So we ruled out a lot of the equipment, because even if we're doing the Faraday experiment and closing it off, it was just too much of a fragile environment. So it's difficult with some of that stuff. Like I said, it's fun. I love my motion board. I love doing the Estes method, but you really have to layer those pieces of equipment and that evidence.
Yeah, and I feel like you have to take everything with a grain of salt too. A lot of people post everything like it's evidence, but I tend to grab the things that make a lot of sense in the moment too. Like if I'm asking the spirits to do something specifically and it's happening and I can ask them twice in a row and they do it a second time, that to me is an answer like a yes. But if like I'm walking down a hallway and all of a sudden all the tripwire starts going bananas, it's not necessarily a spiritual thing. It might just be the tripwire having a, you know, a battery moment, or
Yeah.
because sometimes things go off without actual things happening. And I think that a lot of people don't really understand that. Not everything that happens with a device or a piece of equipment is spiritual.
Yeah. You know, actually, I had a really cool experience with the tripwire recently. And it was like the one time in owning that device that I was like, what just happened? And I had it laid out on the floor in the basement of this place, the Black Horse Tavern, that I've been researching. And I was so frustrated because everyone that was intuitive there was kind of, again, taking over the investigation and saying, we saw a woman go here, we saw this. And I said, I understand and I believe you. I do believe you. But if we can't replicate that on camera, if we can't bring something tangible for people, they're going to say, you're just saying you saw stuff. So we go to the basement. It's the heat of my frustration. And I said, we're going to embody the spirit of the Whiskey Rebellion and all these people who are angry with their government. So just start letting it out. So we're releasing all this anger. We have the tripwire on the floor. We have a whiskey bottle set up as a proximity meter. So we've attached a proximity meter to it so that if something were to grab the whiskey bottle, that would happen. And I said, if there's anyone here, can you give me a sign other than with the equipment? Can you give me a loud knock? And then you hear this loud knock, bang, all the tripwire lights up. And then, you know, we're getting all of, like, everything just heightened. The whole energy in the room changed. And the person under doing Estes said, someone just came in the door and looked in the room. And that's when I was like, and then after she came out, I was like, you're not going to believe what happened. So the fact, there's nothing that would have caused that bang that would have done the tripwire, like that would have triggered the tripwire.
And sometimes it does go off all at once, but most of the time it's like individual lights, I've noticed.
Yeah.
One of our favorite things to do with tripwire is actually duck, duck, goose. We'll put it in a circle and have people sit behind the lights, and we'll line someone up with each light, and then we'll play duck, duck, goose and see if the spirits will pick anyone to leave the room. We usually use it as a way to like send people away to do Estes, or have the spirit select somebody that they want to play with a little bit more, and we'll send them into another room by themselves. Mostly on events we do that, but it's kind of a neat way to play with tripwire other than just putting it up a staircase or down a hallway. I recently talked to Patty Negri, and she said that she's put it around a seance before, and it doesn't really have the same effect during a seance that it does during an investigation.
No, I've had the same experience actually. And I guess because we're acting as conduits in that moment and we're just kind of channeling, I don't know, but I've tried to use it the same way. And I've used it, you know, around a circle while we're trying to do any other methods. And it really seems to be one of those things that it just has to align the right way. And like you said, they do have battery moments where the battery starts to die and the whole thing goes red or whatever. But in the basement, what was cool is it was just these two lights. They didn't flash. The two lights were just solid. And I was like, it's like someone standing in the room. And then it stopped and the tripwire is fine. It wasn't faulting. It was really cool.
Yeah, and usually you can restart that just to make sure. And sometimes like you restart it and nothing happens, but sometimes you do and the same two lights are still on and you're like, okay, something's going on for sure with this. So I have a fascination with Ouija boards. I actually have, oh, you can't see it because of my chair. I have a Ouija board behind me that I got from the Ukraine. It was one of the last things they made before the war started, and they had shipped it to me. It's such a cool thing, but I love the whole collecting of Ouija boards. And I know you do that. How many do you have?
Is it from the Pandora witch shop?
It
From
is.
yeah, I am a Ouija nerd, so I also see like it looks like you have the Elvira one back there too.
Yeah. So that's the one from Pandora.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. I love their work. So I genuinely don't know. I started collecting talking boards in 2013. So it's now, I felt like such a baby collector. And now I'm like, I've really been into this for a while. I know there's over 100. I know that I have some in storage, and then some, the ones that are on display here are, that's not even my collection, that's my partner's collection. So I have the first board that was labeled Ouija, and it doesn't even have the registered trademark on it yet, from the Kennard Company in the 1890s, you know, and it's just something that I was so drawn to because I'm like, we did this. Like, it was some part of our history that we were like so compelled, and it's held so much mystery and allure. And, you know, there's people that say, oh, it's the idiomotor effect, but I just really love them. I love the talking board community, and I'm really passionate about their history because it's there, it's documented, it's a little hairy, you know, someone fell off one of his buildings and died. Like, the history is really cool.
Yeah, I've been obsessed with Ouija boards since probably that 80s movie Witchboard.
Yeah.
Kind of my favorite movie. And then I went back to the Salem Witchboard Museum, and they have the hands from Witchboard 2 on the Ouija board, like from the actual movie, and I kind of geeked out a little bit. But the one I'm obsessed with, you actually have one, and I have no clue even how to get my hands on one. It's the Scooby-Doo one.
So there's a creator in the community. I'll send you his information. He made them independently, and they're so cute, and they kind of blew up. And he made them as like a fun project for himself, and everyone really loved them. But he had them like, if you message and ask nicely, he's like, oh yeah, I'll get you on. So he might still have them. I wish he had just like put them out into full production because, you know, it's such a cute, amazing design.
Yeah, and I grew up with Scooby-Doo. That's probably what started my, my ghost hunting craze. But, every time I see that board, I've seen it in the museum. They have one there. And then
Yeah.
you have one. And I've actually I'm friends with Tessa and Nick Roth, and they connected me to merch. And I talked to him about them, and I still have not got my hands on one of these Ouija boards. So
Yeah, I think it's Alan is his name. I'll send you the Instagram account because that's how I ended up getting my hands on it. They're all in the talking board community, so there's like a whole group of people that are dedicated to this. So there's the Talking Board Historical Society, which is the historians. So that's, you know, Merch and John and Calvin, and then there's also a group of people who are just talking board collectors that they have a Facebook group for too.
I could listen to merch talk Ouija boards for hours. Like, I've listened to so many podcasts where he's told the stories, and
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I met up with him back in, it must have been like 3 months ago or 4 months ago, and we went to dinner, and we went to this Mexican restaurant where they played the bongos like every time it was something's birthday. But I was like, I'm trying to hear these cool stories that he has. But yeah, I really love that community and that history, and we defend it very fiercely, as you see in some of the fakery going on.
So, do you have an object in your house that you consider to be the most haunted or the most scary?
I think the dolls, I think those are the ones that really unsettle people. You have an object in your possession that have had, you know, over 1,000 people have said affected them through a screen. Whether or not you believe that, it's going to hold some power. And I personally, I give them the most power. I don't insult them because the person that they came from, that's how it opened up. They were photographing them and they started speaking negatively of them, and it just transpired the way that it did. And he wanted to keep them. He wrote about them in his book, and he wanted to keep them, but he eventually had to let them go because it had got so bad between him and his wife. Both people that did not believe in this stuff. I went to their house and they were like, yeah, we're open to something happening, but it hasn't in my, 30 years of collecting or whatever, working with museums, owning these things. So those definitely, and the fact that I brought them home and I had the camera on them, and the light goes out and their mouths open, and I'm like, okay, so I think that was paranormal, that was uncomfortable, and I'm alone. And I just really try to give them respect because I'm not trying to challenge it. And the most they've manifested is like car troubles, but it was so much back to back. I don't know if did you watch the show Oddities when it was out?
I did not, but I know of it.
So Ryan Matthew Cohen, the collector who was on that show for a few seasons, he is a historian, a curator. He runs the Oddities flea market events that pop up in LA and stuff. So that's whose collection it was. So when I came out with a story, everyone's like, ah, yeah, like a haunted doll someone sent you. I'm like, yeah, but it matters who it came from because this is a person who's experienced with antiques, with artifacts, and for him to say something was haunted, it changed the whole trajectory of his public image, saying he believes in the paranormal now because of these dolls. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. People who normally wouldn't be scared by something, if they start being afraid of it, then you're like, okay, maybe something real is coming out of this.
Yeah.
Because it's those people who are the skeptics. Like anytime a skeptic starts believing, something happened to make them to believe in my eyes. And I absolutely believe that, objects can carry energy. I don't believe things are trapped on objects or in objects, but I believe kind of what you believe. They use those as access to get to us, or um we can communicate with. Like I have a mirror that one of my clients, or a friend of mine actually was like, I need you to come get this mirror. It's things are just not good at my house. Mediums have come in and said it's a mirror, get rid of the mirror. Well, find out that the mirror came from Danvers State Mental Hospital in Massachusetts. And it's a terrifying mirror, but I have gotten nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I have a typewriter that's allegedly haunted from Danvers. I have the doors from Danvers.
Nothing.
Danvers is like one of my big interests, so that's interesting. But I do think there are objects from there, especially a mirror, when you start looking into that history. And then there's people who collect state hospital and asylum artifacts, and they never have activity. So it truly is how much power you give to it. With the dolls, I will say I have a large social media platform and I wanted to replicate it. I wanted to validate Ryan's claims. So when I posted them, it was because I wanted that much energy to be fed into those dolls. I wanted that many people to see them. And it ended up being like a 15 million view thing. And they did manifest, but now they're quiet. And a lot of people are still thinking about them, which is kind. But I think it is how much you put into it and how much you allow. With the ring that I got, I don't interact with that because I'm just kind of like, the energy, the heaviness of that object, someone putting so much energy into an object that they feel that it gave them cancer, a 1 in a million type of cancer. That's not for me to just like interact with. I don't want to bring. I'm not saying that I think that that can happen, and I'm not saying that I don't believe them, but that's not something I'm trying to interact with.
Exactly. You have a healthy enough fear to keep your distance from it. And I would probably do the same thing. This mirror, I plan on investigating it maybe live sometime. I just
Mhm.
haven't gotten to it yet. But I think when you were talking about like what you put into something is what you get out of it. And that's one thing I tell people when we start investigating at events is what you came here tonight with is what you're going to get out of tonight. If you come here a skeptic, 99% you're going to leave here a skeptic still, because nothing is going to come up to you because it doesn't like that you don't believe it either. Like when you're a skeptic, you feed that energy. But if you also come in there arguing, in a bad mood, negative, you're going to attract a negative energy, and not necessarily demonic or anything like that, but your negative spirit will come towards you.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't feed off of that same thing. A lot of people believe that you can not interrogate, what's the word where you're annoying the spirits, like antagonizing, trying to
Yes.
get them to do things. When you start to piss spirits off, what are they going to do? They're going to do exactly what you expect. They're going to get pissed, and
Mhm.
things will break, things will fall, noise will happen. And and we don't do that. We want happy moments. We want to find out what actually happened. We want to find the history of these buildings. We want to know what these spirits are still doing on the other side, and communicate as much as we can, get as much as we can out of them. So before we leave today, because I have a couple of things I just want to ask really quick. And then I actually I watched your Amityville doc a long time ago, and I rewatched it recently because I have like this affinity with Amityville. Like I think Amityville was one of the first things, aside from Scooby-Doo, that really set me off into the paranormal world. Like one of the things that I got fascinated by, and the book was amazing. Like I read the book, and it's terrifying. But I had a question, like, have you ever actually been inside the house?
Nobody has. They don't let us.
I want to go in
So
so
funny.
bad.
They put out Halloween decorations, but they have young kids and they're just not open to that. So, there's all this stuff coming out and everything. And I think that's what adds to the mystery because we can't get in there. And I, I think one thing that really bothers me about Amityville, and I said it in the documentary, that was so long ago and it wasn't my case. So now I look back on that, I'm like, I don't really want to speak so much on things that I haven't investigated personally. But I will say the fact that people are so quick to be like, nothing happened there. They lied. It was a hoax. It's like, how do you know? Like, you don't know. And we can't know until they, decide to change that and open it up. So hopefully it changes hands at some point. I know it's been remodeled, but it's something I've always been curious about as well. And there's a lot of the history that is missed by a lot of these people that come forward and say Amityville was a hoax, this and this, they lied. But then
Yeah.
I'm like, how much nuanced information have you not dug into that us in the paranormal community, we all know, but you don't know because you're just using Google to come forward and say it was fraudulent.
And in a place where such a tragedy happened, even if it wasn't haunted before the tragedy,
Yep.
after the tragedy, at a minimum, there's got to be some sort of haunting energy in there. And I mean, they moved in like what, like less than like 2 months after this
It
tragedy
was
happened,
28 days. Yeah.
28 days after. Like that to me is I saw like that they still had they moved in with the same furniture. They slept in the same beds that people were murdered in. Like, you know, there has got to be something real about the Amityville story, even if that in its entirety it may be not real, but there's definitely something there. And like skeptics taking it down. I've seen the documentary where they're trying to say it's fake. Like the lawyers, like it never happened. We advised the people to do this. No, sorry, not buying it. What I don't love
No.
though is that the people of Amityville are trying to bury the history too. Like the town of Amityville wants nothing to do with the Amityville horror story, but you would think they would kind of embrace that a little bit.
Well, given the type of community it is where they have a lot of money and they have those like houses that are, they're close to $1 million, they don't really need the attention, especially the residential people. They don't like it. But at the same time, you really can't ignore it. It's become such a big part of our history. And one of the things I was talking about, like the Lutzes, they got into the occult. They went to the Paracons. They were involved in our community, and so to, like I said, to deny that and act like that didn't exist. So I would like to see something happen. I would like to see Amityville kind of not capitalize on it, but at least acknowledge the history and the significance. But maybe without a resolution, it just can't happen yet, like where it's like we haven't investigated to confirm, we haven't seen what's, maybe they're afraid to even open it back up, whatever it was. There were a lot of things mismanaged there, so
Yeah, I will say if I'm ever a millionaire, and the property does go up for sale, I will definitely buy it.
right.
Um, and open it for investigation purposes. Could you imagine an Airbnb at the Amityville house? Like, how many people would rent that house out just to stay in there, regardless of paranormal or whatnot? That would be a massive amount of attention.
Oh, absolutely. And when we filmed that, they were telling us you have to get off the sidewalk, and I don't want to harass the people, but the mayor had approved that filming and they're like, we're going to talk to the mayor about this, and they're like, well, the mayor was on the documentary. So,
Right. So we have no time left. We're running out of time. So, and I want to make sure we give you time to tell everyone where you're going to be, where they can find you. Anything you want to push is your time to do that.
sure. So, I do have a documentary that was delayed for about a year, but it's coming out, I believe, this month or the very beginning of next month. So that goes to the Grand Midway, which is one of my favorite locations. So the Grand Midway Hotel in Wimber, PA. And then I have another documentary we just filmed, which is Historically Haunted, Surrounded by Spirits. That's the Brownsville, PA one that's going to be coming out. I'm always on social media as My Bloody Galentine. Most people know how to find me that way. And then, yeah, I'll be on the Ghosts of the Eastern Seaboard, Strange Escapes in September.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing Ghosts and Glitter. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you. And
Yeah, thank you so much.
yeah, and hopefully we get to meet in person and maybe do an event together in the future, or some sort of research together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
It's time to meet Monique. There's no one quite like she. All ghost hunting, drag queen. She'll tell you all you need. Cause strikes the highest form of energy there is. So come on, boys and girls, join her paranormal world. Ghost and glitter. Join the ghostess with the mostest. Ghost and glitter. Monique too soon, hope you don't scare too soon. Ghost and glitter. Ghost and glitter. Join the ghostess with the mostest. Ghost and glitter.
Thank you for listening to Ghost and Glitter. My name is Amy Champion, and please follow my papa, Monique Too Soon, on all social media. And be sure to leave a great review.